T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentions that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Let's Get Down to Business. Let's Get Down to Business is a collaboration between the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and IKTV. Tonight, we have a very interesting topic. We're talking about cybersecurity, what you need to know to be safe in cyberspace. I've got a very distinguished and able panel to take you through these issues. And of course, I'm sitting here with my co-host. And I'll start the introductions now. My co-host is Maurice Franklin. And Maurice, nice to have her again here tonight. All the way in Brussels at 2 o'clock in the morning, Janika John, she's a software engineer. She's a daughter of the soil of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'm sure Janika is going to enlighten you, viewers and followers tonight. Anton Jardine, another familiar face. He is the assistant systems administrator at GECU, data systems administrator at GECU. And we have in Dallas, I think I'm correct, Juan Carlos Oroso, and he is the retail sales manager for cybersecurity systems for Cisco in Latin America and the Caribbean. I want to say a hearty welcome to my panelists, and I'm going to go straight to Maurice and let her take it away.
Thank you, Tony. So let's begin at the beginning. What exactly is cybersecurity? Can you help us with that, Mr. Roscoe?
Of course. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and hopefully we can have a fruitful conversation today. Cybersecurity has, I'll say, different definitions, and it's going to depend really on the end user. But at the end of the day, is the ability of a company or a person to be able to transact either commercial or personal activities in the cyberspace, however you want to define that, in a safe and secure way. And it really becomes an asset of either my personal life or an asset of a particular corporation to enhance the way that they do business.
And of course, it's important when consumers interact with businesses and all of that. So why exactly is it important for businesses and consumers to be worried or to be thinking about cybersecurity? Can you take us through that, Jan?
Yes, sure. Well, when you talk about cybersecurity and businesses, it's not something that's often at the fore because it's more of, let's say, like a preventative measure. So it's difficult a lot of these times for businesses or individuals to kind of quantify what the effects of it is. And so it's difficult upfront to kind of convince businesses and individuals to take this into consideration. To give an example, if you think about preventative measures in general, let's say preventative measures against a virus, you might do everything that you need to do to prevent yourself from contracting a particular virus. And you might have a certain crowd of people who say, well, you see, nothing happened. But that's exactly the point. If you take good measures, or if you consider cybersecurity from the beginning, then you can prevent yourself from being in certain situations. And when I say certain situations, ransomware attacks come to mind, losing information, having your information exposed or locked, these types of things. So it's very important to consider it upfront rather than having yourself in the situation at the end.
Maurice, if I may, because Janika's used some terms there. One, virus, which I think most people are familiar with, but I'm gonna ask her to explain that. But ransomware, definitely. You know, when we talk about virus in the computer world, we're not talking about coronavirus. I know that. So maybe Anthony can help with this one, and then one of you can jump in and let's know what ransomware is, because you know we have to not get so well. We have to explain our techie terms.
Yes, so thank you for having me on the show. A virus is just a piece of software that is written with malicious intent. So they can either use to exploit personal information or exploit your passwords and things like that. So a virus, as you well said, is not an infection per se that the computer is sick. It's just a piece of program that some malicious actor used. They wrote it, they deployed it onto somebody's machine, and then that program just runs and does a bit of damage or malicious actions on a particular machine.
Great. And ransomware, what's that term? You could go ahead.
I can take that. I can take that if you want. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. As far as ransomware, it is actually a term that is used to describe malicious activity that happens in a particular IT system. It can be your personal laptop, it can be your phone, it can be a server of your company. And basically what happens is that a piece of software lands in your IT environment, and when it is executed, it actually encrypts your data or encrypts your process, right? So, and it actually blocks you from either accessing your information or transacting business. And usually you will have a page that is telling you, thank you for your business, basically. I have blocked your information. And if you don't want to lose your information and you want access back to your system or your device, you will have to pay a ransom. That's where actually the term comes from, right? Ransomware. It's software that asks for a ransom in a way of different means, from Bitcoin to whatever other the actor that is trying to take advantage of the situation requests from you. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies a little bit the techie term.
So let me see if I understand. So basically, my information, whether it be, we've all become lazy in this age, you know, so the computer has all the passwords stored, all your credit card information. So basically the program has kidnapped your data, and you are required to then expend more money to retrieve it.
In lay terms, actually what happens in most of the cases is that there is going to be a key or a password that you will need to allow you back into your system, right? Now, and you will say, okay, I have to pay X amount of Bitcoins. Let's put up a firm example that I have to deposit in an account that it is owned by either a third party or the actual bad actors that are trying to get your money, okay? And with that, they give you that key or that password. Now, beware that nothing is guaranteed, right? They may give you the password and your information may or may not be there. They may or may not have steal that information, okay? And they may or not be still in your systems. That's one of the things that prevention, as as Yannick was talking about, it's very, very important, because once you get infected, okay, it's really, really difficult, other than complete clean and backup, to make sure that your environment, your PC, your phone are free from that particular piece of bad software that you somehow got downloaded to it, right? So, and in the cybersecurity world, we actually say that there's only two type of companies or two type of people: those that have been attacked and those that they do not know that they have been attacked. Okay, so it's really, really important for everybody in your personal life, your access to your different platforms, and of course on the business side of the house, to be prepared to support these attacks and to be able to transact your business in the safest possible way.
So I'm gonna crave your indulgence here, Maurice, and ask Janik, as a software engineer, you write code, you write software, and you talked about prevention. Do you, in your writing of your software to run whatever applications, do you build in within the writing of your software that sort of resilience to make it difficult for hackers, if you want, or people who compromise other systems and other people's computers? Do you take it at that stage of writing the software?
Yes, actually, it's quite important to consider security and cybersecurity, even as a front-end engineer. So you mentioned that I'm a software engineer, but on a daily basis, I work with the front end. So that's the part of the website that you actually see and interact with. And this is actually very important because, well, there are two aspects to it. One is that with the front end, you actually receive user data. So this is the part where you receive input such as email addresses, passwords. All of this is the part that front-end engineers are coding. But there's also the other aspect where modern web application actually is no longer written just by one software engineer or even within one particular company. For example, in my company, just like many other modern software companies, we use packages from online to comprise our software. And this is quite common. So almost any website that you see, it comprises of different packages from all over the web, contributed by a lot of other software engineers. This is the beauty of the internet. However, with using packages that come from elsewhere or come from other software engineers, you could also inherit, let's say, security vulnerabilities. You could inherit malware if you don't check exactly where you're getting the packages from. And so on a daily basis, we have to do certain checks. A lot of it is done automatically because you would find with cybersecurity, one of the best things that you could do is actually automate a lot of the checks that we are talking about, and we'll continue to talk about throughout this program, because a lot of the time the weakest link is actually a human being. So we have a lot of automated checks that checks these packages, checks certain vulnerabilities. There are even logs online, where they actually document certain vulnerabilities that were found in certain packages, and we could kind of run our packages that we have against these logs. And then aside from that, which is more of like the technical side that us as front-end engineers have to pay attention to, like I said, the front-end engineer or the front end is the part where the user is actually entering information. So you could imagine if a user is actually a bad actor, they could actually try to use the front end to get or gain entry into your system, into your back end, because this is the part that they actually interface with. So it's rather important. I kind of graze the surface, but these are all the things you kind of have to consider.
Understand surely where Maurice, we're gonna have to go to the break, but there's a comment up in the comments field. So when we come back, you may want to pick up with that comment, and I want to hear from Anton as well, as a system administrator, a person who is on the customer service end of all of what we're talking about. What are some of his challenges? You're looking at Let's Get Down to Business. We're talking about cybersecurity. More on that topic when we come back from the break.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentions that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
You're looking at IKTV channel 112, and we are talking about cybersecurity on this edition of Let's Get Down to Business. Let's Get Down to Business is a collaboration between IKTV and the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Maurice, I'm going to hand back over to you. There's a comment, like I said, in the chat, so you may want to deal with that.
We have a comment from Jamal Charles. He says that OWASP Top 10 is normally a standard software engineer used in code development, but that alone is not enough. I have no idea what he's talking about.
I think he's throwing that at Janika.
Definitely.
Yes. Yes, Jamal. I didn't mention it because I didn't want to get super technical, but indeed the OWASP top 10, we actually had to study as part of a security training program. And essentially the OWASP top 10 is just a list of the, let's say, key soft points that you tend to have in software. And being aware of these soft points kind of help you as a software engineer to act against them. And one soft point I would mention, if you think about the Jamaica attack that they had recently, where all the COVID information was leaked online, that was actually one of the OWASP top 10, which is security misconfiguration, which is one of the easiest ways to let hackers into your system.
Well, great.
Thanks,
so,
man.
Excellent. Sorry, Maurice.
No, that's fine. You can go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was wanting to find out from Anton, as a systems administrator at a financial institution, where obviously the information, the data stored, very important. What are some of your challenges, and how can people like Cisco help you? And I'm sure Carlos would jump in as well on this point.
Right. So, as a system admin, in a financial institution, our primary objective is information security. We have a lot of members' data and financial transactions stored on our servers. So we take security very seriously. We do something that we call, in very basic terms, we make sure that our network is properly segmented and that access to our core and critical servers is very, very closely monitored and restricted to the users of the least privilege. So we have to make sure that every morning when we come to work, not only is our supplementary servers online, but that we are able to transact business, continue to offer 24-hour services to our home banking members and things of that nature. So the thing that keeps us awake at night and keeps us asleep at night is knowing that we have enough security attacks, and in the event that there is a cyber attack, that we have disaster recovery procedures put in place already to quickly get the system back up and running.
But I'm sure Geku customers would like to know that. But Carlos, you are in the business of making sure that enterprises like financial institutions and so on can sleep at night, to use Anton's term. Typically, what are the measures that you, or the packages or the products that you provide to deal with the various threats?
And
Perfect.
do
Thank
you
you,
think
Tony.
businesses are spending enough on your products? Or should they be spending
That
more?
is an easy question, and it is no. Yeah. And out of joking, without joking, there is a recommendation always goes first to the business, right? And it's the ability of the people like Anton that are in charge of having a secure infrastructure to be able to have what we call an architecture. In these modern days, it is not enough to have silo solutions, right? I can have a firewall, I can have an antivirus, I can have multiple factor authentication systems, I can have an IPS, an ISC, and I'm going to get techie here, right, for the people in the audience that can understand me, right? But from firewalls to IPS to ISCs to have different ways of microsegmenting my network, the ability to understand my lateral movement of data. Okay, it gets really technical really quickly in the cybersecurity environment. So that's one recommendation that I will do. But anybody that is listening to us or watching us, we need cybersecurity engineers all over the world. Okay, and it's a very, very fruitful, I'll say, job environment. Really technical, really fast, really good people are very much needed. So enough on that. But as far as the question is, an architecture that can secure your business. The architecture revolves around three H's as most everything else, right? People, technology, and process. Okay, as Yannick said, people are the weakest link. Is the person that does click on a phishing email. Now, talking in this direction, Tony, the email is the most common vector of attack. That's the way that we refer to it, right? And it's the way that a malicious attack comes into my environment. It's usually through an email, right? And that's where you get an email saying, okay, you won a raffle, or you get the text that it says you won a raffle. Click here, give me your name, your number, your password. Thank you very much. See you. And then you get into problem, right? But it is important to have an architecture. And I will always talk to our customers and to governments and to financial institutions and to universities to really define what their security architecture is, right? And after that, the next question, and it's something that very well Anton mentioned, is what is my disaster recovery, right? You have to have a plan. What happens if you lose your own password for your banking account? What is your disaster recovery process, right? And then the next question is, Mr. Customer, when was the last time that you did a tabletop exercise? Okay, what happens if tomorrow you turn on your laptop and your laptop is encrypted? What is the first phone call that you have to do? If you cannot answer that, please, please, please go back to your IT environment and get that answer, because it is critical to be able to stop. You have to contain the attack. So going down again through your question, Tony, is what is your architecture? What is your disaster recovery plans? And then we begin to fill in the white space, fill in the holes with a firewall or with an email system, or what it's called now an XDR, okay, an X-point disaster recovery, or a way to really make sure that your devices are protected. And then we come down to the network, microsegmentation, understanding how your data moves, and in that way we can find if you've been attacked, and if you were attacked, how to contain it, and then how to recover.
Okay, I want to lobby back to Anton here, because so one is talking about all of these important selling points, but do you think it's important, because there's usually, you have management and you have your employees, do you think it's important for there to be somebody on the board of directors of the business to have an understanding of cybersecurity and to really, really have a good grasp of the importance of this area? Or is it enough to have somebody skilled on your team that maybe would be able to sell the whole idea to management?
Well, definitely, it's best advantage if you have somebody who's already skilled. A lot of businesses locally, they would hire IT personnel, and they will just assume that that person is going to know the whole broad field of IT. IT is very large, like in the field of being a doctor. You have to specialize in certain areas to be really good at it. So while every IT personnel may have some knowledge of security, they're not necessarily specializing in it, and not having that can be a mistake. So having that on the management and the policymakers and so forth is an asset. But even if you don't necessarily have them full time, having it as a consultant that you can bring in, get the input, that can also work as well.
Janika, I'm going to jump in here, Maurice. You website developer, and I suppose you also deal with e-commerce platforms. How safe should I feel, with my credit card, debit card, transacting business, to just about, anybody who's out there in cyberspace wanted to sell me something? How can I go through that minefield and judge whether this is a risk that I should take, and I'm not going to have my credit card or debit card information stolen off me?
Well, I'm gonna give some very practical advice for the Vincentians that might be watching this about, what you just said and some steps that you could take right now. One of the things that you should look for, and as Juan mentioned, it's really like a lot of different things compounding on top of one another that amounts to safety. It's not just one thing or the other, but I'm going to mention some things. One thing you can do is look in your URL of your bar that the e-commerce website that you're visiting, whether ebay.com, and ensure that URL, so the URL is the part that you see in the bar, ebay.com, google.com, amazon.com, and ensure that it is the URL that you think you are on. Because this is one of the biggest and easiest ways that people get caught. Juan mentioned phishing emails. They tend to spoof certain providers or make it look like eBay sent you a particular email when they didn't. So this is one of the things that you could just do. Check and make sure that the URL is really where you think you should be. This is a good reflex to have. Also, you could look for a lock. There tends to be a lock there, and this just again, this is just one part of many, but oftentimes it ensures the authenticity of the website. Another thing that I would add is, remember I mentioned components before, and that a lot of websites are made up of components that are done by other people. One of the actual, let's say, positives of this is that a lot of the time when you use these e-commerce websites, the part that you actually pay or the part that you actually put your credit card into is done by one or two providers, where their entire development team is focused on a daily basis on just developing that aspect. So the positive part is they're focused on that, they do that well. It's, for example, if you want to buy cloth, you might go specifically to a shop that sells cloth. You might not go to a big store that sells cloth and a lot of other different things, because their quality might not be as good as somebody who's really focused on it. So to come back to your question about, how you could be sure or how you can know, this is one of the things that you can think about to feel a little bit more secure, that oftentimes these parts of the application that deals with credit card transaction, PayPal and so forth are done by somebody who's really focused on it. What I will say and remind or repeat again is that the risk often comes when you're not on the site that you think you're on, or you get an email and the link is not pointing to the place where you think it's pointing to. So always verify that, and that will help you feel a little bit more secure.
Well, Maurice, I think we're getting an earful and a mindful tonight. Just tell me something. One, the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. Why the S and why some without the S?
Yeah, the S is very, very, very important. It's actually when you secure the HTTP protocol, right? The hypertext protocol. And it's actually a means for me as a user to understand that the developer on the website that I'm trying to access has taken an additional quote-unquote layer of security so that I can get into that particular session in a secure way. So that is very, very important, okay? And just as Janika was saying, if I can look at the HTTP and it doesn't have an S and I'm trying to transact something financial there, I will think twice, right? And then the other additional step on that particular area is that if you have and I'm not gonna mention names because they have any sort of arrangement. I am actually a PayPal user, right? So for PayPal, in my point of view, for example, I do the transaction and I let PayPal talk to the vendor. My credit card information is behind PayPal. So that information does not transact on my time and on my typing and in my session my credit card information. That is done in a secure way between PayPal and somebody else. So that's an additional, I'll say, personal assurance that I can have. And then on top of that, and this will apply for businesses too, is to have what is called MFA, multi-factor authentication. That because today a password and a user ID, it's not longer enough to have anybody secure. Okay, again, it's not longer enough. You have to have another layer of being able to understand that when doing a transaction, I have a second factor of authentication to make sure that I am the one that can access. Right, as Anton was saying. Okay, the bank is going to give me the least amount of privilege to access information for doing my work. And if they are making sure that I been authenticated twice or three times in order to get to those part of the systems, is going to be much safer. So, and even for your personal use, you can do MFA for your Facebook account, for your Instagram account, for your TikTok account, for any other type of environment. It is a pain in the neck. It's a pain in the thumb, actually, or in your finger, because you have to click again once. But it's very, very, very safe. And if for my kids, I have 21-year-olds, okay, and they don't like to do it. They have to do it now. It is an environment with, in the one case of one of my kids, he's studying in university in Florida, and they actually have MFA, that is as a commercial now, it's Duo from Cisco. It is the MFA activity, and whenever he's trying to log in his grades, attend to class, get something from the university, they are making sure. And in short term, MFA is something that I have and something that I know, right? It's either my password and my phone, my password or my IP address, my password or something else that I have to make sure that Juan Carlos Orozco is sitting in Dallas, because I can see the IP network from the Dallas router, and I know that Juan Carlos works in Dallas, so it's okay for him to come into the Cisco Systems IT environment. Okay, hopefully that helps a little bit to add on top of the security layers.
That's pretty useful information. Well, unfortunately, we have to go to the break again, and when we come back, Maurice will want to drill down a bit more to some other points. But right now, let's take a break and come right back to our discussion on cybersecurity.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentions that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
Welcome back to Let's Get Down to Business. We are into a very interesting discussion on cybersecurity. The more and more the world moves to doing transactions online, the more and more we need to be safe that those transactions are not going to leave you penniless or your whole life destroyed. So, Maurice, with that said, I hand back over to you.
Speaking of penniless, I wanted to ask a question, Jan. So, a lot of the times, we log on to sites regularly and we allow them to store our information. And you were giving some helpful tips earlier. And I remember I saw something recently and they said, it's important to always check which sites have stored your data because sometimes we're not aware. So I was wondering if you could help our audience with that in terms of, how do I put it, giving your browser some TLC on a regular basis.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because it's such a good habit to have and we don't talk about it enough. If you go to Facebook, if you log into your Facebook right now, you could do it on your phone as you're listening to this, or you could open a new tab in your browser and you go through to the settings. They always tend to try to bury or hide these things. There is often a section where you could either download the data that they have on you, that Facebook themselves has on you, or where you could actually see other applications that connected through Facebook to your information. Um, to kind of bring this into context or into light, you might have heard of Cambridge Analytica. You probably heard that term floating around. Essentially, from a high level, I wouldn't dive into too many details, but a lot of applications back in the day, and back when I say back in the day in cybersecurity terms, this is 5-10 years ago, so really not that long ago. A lot of applications were connecting through Facebook or authenticating through Facebook. So, for example, when you see these quizzes and they say, okay, we're going to do a quiz and we're going to tell you who's your uncle or cousin from your Facebook profile. All of this is through connecting to your Facebook profile from another application. And this application, a lot of times, is not developed by Facebook. You see what I'm saying?
Jenny, I don't want
Another
to
example.
break your stride.
Yeah, sure.
But
Sure.
I don't want to let you get past that point. So you're telling me a lot of these games that you see on Facebook are basically traps to or potential traps, and you ought to stay away from them, eh?
Potential traps. I think the way to think about it is to just think twice before you let an application connect to, let's say, your Twitter, your Facebook, any one of these other applications that you use regularly that has a lot of your data in it. Just think twice. Don't just jump on it because you see everybody on the timeline posting this fun new game. Sometimes they change your face. You upload a picture of your face and they modify it. Think twice because a lot of the times, or it can be a situation where this is actually developed by a third party, and underneath they have different motives. Let's say, like for example, they might be downloading all the pictures that you uploaded to use for a different purpose. I mentioned Cambridge Analytica, for example. So just think twice. And to come back to what Maurice mentioned, the advice I would give, I would repeat it. Go through Facebook, Twitter, all these applications that you're using, even Instagram maybe, and just check and see what data they have on you, and check and see which applications are connected through Facebook or Twitter. And a lot of the times you could actually revoke access. If you've been using these platforms for a very long time, you might see that developers still have access to your Facebook from some game that you installed 10 years ago, 5 years ago when you were using Facebook. The game no longer exists, but they still have access. Why is that? So just go through and check and see if you see anything that's a bit too old, anything that you're not using, and just click revoke access. And really take your time and look, because trust me, they tend to bury these options deep in the settings, but it's worth your time.
That's a very solid advice.
Look out for any financial information that they might have as well, like my card number. You know how you can automatically.
It's possible. And like Juan said, it all comes down to phishing. Let's say, pretending or spoofing, or let's say forming the front end or forming what you see to kind of gain your trust and let you put information in. And so it's just a good reflex to have. Not every game you see or not every input field you see is bad, but it's a good reflex to have to kind of think twice about, where am I really entering my information? Is it where I think I'm entering it? This is just a good reflex to have, and you could really save yourself a lot of heartache that way.
Maurice, before you continue, let me just respond to some of the comments I'm seeing. Well, basically people just encouraging us on. Nicolene Elam, she's saying we got useful information. Curtis Brown, he wants to tell panelists good night. Important and timely discussion. I see my friend Carlton Pickering in Anguilla. He's following us. He's saying great information for the business community. We thank everybody, and we encourage others to participate and ask your questions. Back to you, Maurice.
Okay, so I'm not sure who this one is for, but I know we're talking about cybersecurity, but in our region, we still rely a lot on written information and securing that. And so, do you think there should be some sort of alignment between our written information security and our cyber data security? What do you think about that? Or is there a way that we should try to design our written information security programs? I'm not sure who wants to take this one.
Maybe one, you want to jump in?
Sure, I can certainly take that. There are different things, and very quickly we're going to get to regulation in that conversation. So let me start there, right? What you have on GDPR and when you have in HIPAA, for example, right? HIPAA on the health and medical area, and then on the privacy of the information that businesses can collect or store on the GDPR side of the house. So there should be an alignment. Yes, there should be an alignment. Okay, and let me back up. If I'm a business, I have 2 or 3 very important decisions to take. That is, which framework I'm going to use, or I'm going to adhere to, or I have to. Okay, usually it is mandated by the government. And that's on the business side and the written information on what you were talking about in this case. But at the same time, I have to take a decision on the cybersecurity side to understand to which framework I want to, I have to, or I lean towards, right? There's a couple of them. There are plenty of them, but there are the 2 most common ones. Something that is called NIST, N-I-S-T, and the other one is under ISO, right? On the cybersecurity part of ISO. So you have then the legal framework, okay, or the regulation side of the house, and then you have the cybersecurity framework. And you have to build your environment using those 2 pillars so that you can comply and be protected. Hopefully that helps a little bit on the conversation.
If I might jump in and add...
Go ahead, Shanika.
Yes, I just wanted to jump in and add on that point, because a lot of offices in St. Vincent can tend to be low-tech in terms of how they store information. But I just wanted to throw out a bit of food for thought that even in the low-tech offices where everything is written or you have everything on a piece of paper, everybody has their smartphone. So it really just takes a couple of seconds to go from a low-tech document to something that's online. So it's still something that we have to think about, even in offices where you only have documents, where you only have written information. It just takes somebody snapping some photos of the documents with their smartphone, or even scanning it for it to actually end up being a digital document. So it's just something to keep in mind.
We got some comments and questions, Maurice. I don't know if you want to read them.
Yes, definitely. So we have a question from Shakanya Small. She's asking, besides the 2-step verification process financial institutions use, are there other things to look out for to gauge how well our financial data is protected as consumers?
Well, I'll take that one. Well, as a financial institution, we don't necessarily give out information on how we protect the data. But as a consumer, the only time you actually get to interact with your balances or your financial data, come to the office, or if you log on with one of our either home banking or mobile banking apps. When you log on to the home banking website, you notice that it's secure with HTTPS. And when you log on with your mobile device, you notice that we also ask for your biometric input to verify that it is you. Now, without giving too much, behind the scenes, your phone or your browser never talks directly to our servers in the office. It goes through a bunch of other servers, and only through a special secure server that is specially connected to our data, it gathers that information and returns it back to the user. So that's the kind of level of security that we will have in terms of comfort, knowing that our members' financial data is secure, apart from the two-step verifications.
Thanks. And we have another comment / question from Andre Brown. He's saying, sometimes the fear of the unknown helps to push the uninitiated away from using technology. What assurances can we give to persons who listen here tonight and feel even more afraid to implement tech?
We're scaring people, are we?
Yes, I mean, especially when you think about the GDPR and the heavy fines that they can implement if you don't actually comply or if you happen to have a breach.
Let me take a shot of that. I can take a shot of that one, if you don't mind, Tony.
Yes, go ahead, man.
Yeah, and here we have to think in two different environments, right? One is me as a person, okay, as a consumer and as a user of technology, how comfortable I am with it, right? And whenever I have that conversation with somebody, I'll ask, okay, let's go to the restaurant, and then when you have to pay the check, what do you do, right? You give your credit card with your signature, your number, and everything to a person that you have never seen in your life. He takes it, he goes, you don't know where, and then he comes back, and then you gladly sign an autograph, right? That's what's happened. At the end of the day, I give my credit card, the server takes it, runs it somewhere, who knows where, then he comes back and I sign something, and I don't even read what's going there. So that's the sort of environment that we work in. Now, I can take all the precautions there, and really technology is there to help me. If the technology is not helping me, then it's not the right technology, number one. And number two, there are very specific things that are very easy to implement, and then they will help everyone, okay? There's, for example, we were talking about architecture, okay? The most common way to stop the attacks is by making sure that whenever I make a click, somebody, meaning a software, is looking at that name resolution, what it's called DNS, domain name resolution, that I can understand that it is a valid website, okay? When I click and I do https dot blah, 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 that blah, 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 it's real. And there are many ways to protect. We have a solution that is called Umbrella, that is actually the largest DNS system in the world, that it actually does. We load a whole bunch of really bad websites that Umbrella checks before you get there. So when I click and I say, then Umbrella will look at it and say, no, Juan Carlos, you don't go there, okay? Because we know that there is still information there, and then it pushes me back, and I never get there. So the best solution is the one that it's gonna forbid me as a user to get into trouble, okay? So having that and making sure that we can train our users. The next most important thing is train the user, okay? And in that way, your transaction is gonna be easy. And then you can begin to play with the different technologies that you have to do what really you need to do, that is to make your business do more money, okay? For us, our business is very easy. I only have to do three things with my customers, right? I help them to spend less money today, to spend less money in the future, or to make more money. That's the only thing that we do with our customers. Now, the bag of trinkets that I have, that I put in the table as pieces of the puzzle, are the cybersecurity environment. Okay, so hopefully that helps.
Great, Maurice. We sadly have to go to the break. Yeah, we've got some, I think, 2 more questions there in the comments chat, but let's go to the break, and when we come back, we'll be into our final segment. Very interesting discussion, and we've got lots of participation out there. So let's go to this final break and come back and wrap up.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered by a company owned by Vincentions that understands your unique insurance needs? At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
You're looking at Let's Get Down to Business, and we're into our final segment on this topic of cybersecurity, what you need to know to be safe in cyberspace. I think there are quite a few comments in the comments feed. I see Janika's father sending out a shout up to her. Very good, Michael. She's seen you. Michael says it's a very interesting program, and special hello to Janika. So daddy telling daughter good evening or good night. Yes, Maurice.
Okay, so we have a comment from Curtis Brown. He's saying, it must be said that in these regions, we still take this arena very slightly, despite all the cyber attacks happening worldwide. It must always be kept in mind that every system or piece of infrastructure can be vulnerable at some point. At the same time, for businesses as well as individuals, steps must always be taken to mitigate against the ever-emerging threats in the cybersecurity landscape, as has been seen in the range of attacks ranging from the SolarWinds to the Kaseya attacks. And I guess he wanted to go on.
Yes, that's a good point he's making.
Yeah.
If I could just add to what Curtis mentioned here with the Kaseya attacks. That one particularly is interesting for us in St. Vincent, because the funny thing with the Kaseya attacks is that, so backtracking a little bit, a lot of small supermarkets in Sweden, they call them co-ops, had to close because of the Kaseya attacks. Now, these supermarkets were located in Sweden, and the Kaseya attacks were really focusing on the US. But the supermarkets in Sweden were using software that was using Kaseya. And the reason why I said this is interesting to us in St. Vincent is because a lot of the times in a lot of establishments, we might download software or use software that somebody else advised us to use without thinking or auditing what these software in turn use. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the modern world of web development and components. All these different components can have an effect. And so one really practical thing that we could do after this program is to go and check. Do you know exactly which software you're using in your supermarket? Do you know the name of the software that you're using? What's the name of the software that you're using to do your point of sale, for example? If tomorrow there's an announcement that there is an attack or a vulnerability on a particular piece of software and they say the name, would you actually know that you are actually also vulnerable because you're using it? So it's something we really, really need to think about, especially in St. Vincent and other small islands in the Caribbean.
It's an excellent point, actually. It's an excellent point for members of the business community. Very, very, very well said.
And Tony, there is something that needs to be mentioned about these two specific attacks, right? It's what it's called a supply chain attack, right? And they were highly sophisticated, very well executed, and extremely difficult to defend against, right? Okay, a couple of things. Cybersecurity, you will never have 100% of effectiveness. If somebody comes to tell you and sell you something that they say, I 100% guarantee, stop the meeting, stand up, show them the door, and let them go and sell to somebody else, right? Please, okay? Even if it's a Cisco guy, then send it to me and I'll have a very polite conversation with him or her. Anyhow, now, making sure that you are protected against supply chain is going to be very, very difficult, okay? That's why having an architecture and having layers in your security architecture is extremely important, okay? And then with risk, there's only three things to do with the risk, right? Okay, we either send it somewhere else, we mitigate, or we accept. That's the only three things that you have to do. And you have to run through your board of directors, in the case of the large businesses, how is that risk environment that you want to talk about or that you want to work with. And in that sense, when you have your environment as far as IT, you have your framework, you have your legal framework, and you have your security, your layers, and the risk mitigation strategies that you have, then you begin to have a very solid plan to be able to have a good relationship with your customers in order to have a very successful business.
So I had a question actually, because Jan mentioned smartphones earlier, and Juan, you mentioned employees. So I was wondering, how have security concerns changed with the onset of the pandemic and the whole idea of working from home and the fact that your employees may be required to access data remotely? Not sure who wants to take this one. Do you want to take this one, Anton?
Well, yes, because we were in the pandemic and we had to respond to the pandemic. Luckily for us at Gecko, we already kind of had a platform that would allow our staff to work securely from home. But I think in other organizations, they had to quickly whip up some plan so that they can get home and do their work. But working from home introduces a new risk that probably most businesses never really thought about, because all of their business plans were based on people being in an office, in a controlled space, getting work done. So it definitely had opened up some new risk areas for different businesses. Some may have rapidly deployed their solution, but still had a risk, but some might have been prepared. Because one of the major risks when you're outside of the office, you no longer have all of that security that may have been installed on your workstation or on your networking equipment. So all these kind of things would have kind of broken down. But I guess over time, over the couple of months that we were in the pandemic, the businesses would have strengthened and patched those risks.
Yeah, in the comments.
Go ahead. Oh, okay, perfect. It's just to make sure, because on Anton's point, there's a couple of things that are important, right? When BYOD, your Bring Your Own Disaster to the Office, began, we were kind of able to control that environment once they come in. The only thing that happened when we went into the pandemic on the cybersecurity side is that the surface attack grew tremendously. Okay, the surface attack went to the whole world, and now you that are in the business community, when you're bringing those devices that were out in the jungle coming back to your environment behind your firewall, God bless you, okay? Because it's going to be a very interesting way to understand what is coming back behind the firewall, and it's going to be able to work within an environment. Again, protection, layers, architecture, please.
Where is some people basically commenting in the comments field. Essentially, I don't think we have time to read all of them out, but most people are acknowledging that it's an informative program. And my friend in Anguilla would like to, he runs a television station actually, and he would like to rebroadcast the program in Anguilla, and that can be arranged. So the more we spread the message. Look, we're coming down to the end here. I wanted to get in one thing, Maurice, if you permit me. We talk about cybersecurity and people hacking and so on, but what about, and this may not necessarily be dealing with cybersecurity in its true sense, but what about where we have Big Brother watching you, espionage sanctioned by administrations, by governments, by security services. What as a layperson, as somebody going about my life innocently, how do I know this is happening to me, and what can I do to maybe prevent it if possible? One, you're
I'm going to talk about a layperson here. Number one, don't do anything that you don't want your mother to do. Okay, that's kind of the rule of thumb. Okay, don't do anything that you are going to be afraid to tell your pastor or your priest that you did. But on the other side of the house, there are things that you can do to protect your privacy, right? It's on one, we always have an option, and it's not to use a service. Okay? You have to take that decision if you want or not to use the service, right? I can live without Twitter, I can live without Facebook, I can live without WhatsApp. Do I want to? Okay, just to put some examples. But on a state-sponsored activity, okay, it can be legal, not legal, ethical, not ethical. I'm not going to get into that. There are specific things that you can do to begin to protect yourself a little bit. It's never going to be 100% because once you turn on your phone or you turn on your laptop, that goes somewhere, okay? And that somewhere knows you, okay? Knows your number, knows your IP address, knows where you are, and they know your traffic. So they know. They can be, again, legal, illegal, ethical, or not ethical. That's not the conversation. But there are things that you can do, right? You can protect yourself by having MFA, by being able to change your password, by having two different devices, one for business, one for personal, by enabling or not enabling certain services that you have within your browser. Again, it gets technical quickly, but at the end of the day, we cannot live in fear, okay? We cannot live without moving to the cloud. Everything is going to the cloud. We are going to all end up interacting with the cloud directly. So it's just a matter of being able to understand how do I want to do have that transaction done in a safe way. And just use your common sense whenever you are dealing with the specifics, right? Do your software updates. Make sure that you change your passwords. Understand what type of HTTPS you are clicking or not. What type of information I'm getting. If somebody tells me that I won $100,000 and I never played the lottery, that's a very red flag. So just be safe on those things.
If I could just jump in and quickly add to what you said, Juan, one of my wish lists for the Caribbean is for us to start thinking about where the data is being hosted. You know, there's this saying, there's no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. It's because the cloud is actually a group of computers, often referred to as a data center, that is stored somewhere. And a lot of countries are starting to really be careful about where their citizens' data is being stored. And when I say where, I mean geographically. And we need to start thinking in the Caribbean. This is for the people, you know, who are in charge of this stuff, if they're listening. Part of my wish list is for us to start thinking about where exactly geographically the citizens of CARICOM and the citizens of the Caribbean data is being stored. Are we thinking about that as hard as some other countries are thinking about it?
Well, Maurice, unfortunately, we are at the end of 1 hour. We're actually running a little bit over. I'm going to crave the indulgence of my producer here and ask the panelists to give me a final 30-second, 45-second comment, starting with you, Anton. What do you want to leave with the people on the topic of cybersecurity?
Well, it's a very real issue, but you should be rest assured that all of the financial institutions, we are very much aware of all the threats and the bad actors and the attack vectors that we are exposed to. And as much as possible, when it comes to your financial data, we minimize that attack surface as much as possible so that not only can you still access it as the owner of the data, but to really prevent outsiders or other bad actors from getting that data. So that's my little two cents on that.
Thank you. Very useful. And Janika?
Yes, I would say if you don't remember anything else I said, remember to go to your social media and check which applications have access to your data. Do it right now. That's my final.
And one we leave the final word with you. What's your final 30 seconds?
Thank you, Tony. First of all, thank you to everybody that is listening in and is going to listen to the broadcast. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. 3 things: architecture, layers, training for the users. And I didn't plug anything from the Cisco side of the house, but please go to talos.com, TALOS.com, CiscoTalos.com is the largest cybersecurity entity that looks at threats, and we do it really for the good of the world. There's a lot of information there that if you are on the cybersecurity side, you're going to find it very useful.
Thank you. Maurice?
I don't have any thoughts. I just want to say thanks to the panelists.
Excellent. Well, I also want to join you and say thank you for all the people who are listening to us and following us in cyberspace. Thank you for taking part. Thank you to the panelists, Juan, Janika, Anton. I think people have enjoyed the information that you shared and they found it very useful. You're looking at the Let's Get Down to Business, a collaboration between the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and IKTV. We're back on Tuesday, with another profile of a business person. And so we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentions that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.